All right. We are live. ALTBAYS show brought to you by ALTBAYS.nz, a media support company that creates amazing high quality content for you or your brand. So just go on ALTBAYS.nz or put your cell phone camera very close to the QR code on the side of your screen to have access to all our social media and see what we're up to. Our show is run here in the beautiful ALTBAYS studio in Fitianga. You can run your webinars, live meetings, podcasts. Just get in touch and we'll help you out because we're awesome. We're live now. Once the show is done, you can watch it on YouTube. And tomorrow, the show will be available on all the main podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, iHeart, Stitcher. There's a few. What else? Oh, and soon you will know how to become a supporter, a sponsor, or a member of our platform. Taylor and I, we have been putting a lot of energy, time, and love into this project, and the response from the community has been amazing, and a lot of people are interested, like how to get on board, and we're coming up with a nice plan, and I'm sure you will all appreciate very soon when we come up with that. Okay, tonight we have this amazing, beautiful person here to have a chat with us. Caz, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Do you like my introduction?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Christine.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
We heard so many cool things about that our first chat.
Oh, I will not watch it back, but watched every other one, just not my own. Okay. It's fine.
Fair enough. How are you, Caz?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good. I'm happy you're here. I'm happy we got this happening.
Yes, it's an absolutely awesome setup. You'll just need to work on how you're going to manage the subtitles to translate the Scottish accent.
Right. We had a chat before and I was telling Caz, I was like, can you please speak English tonight? So I'm sure you do your best and I'll do my best.
Don't mention the English.
I'm sorry?
Don't mention the English.
No. We'll keep it cool. Well, so as people can see, so you were born in Scotland?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, from very Scottish parents. And I don't know what happened to me, but I just felt like I was never born to be there.
Right.
So a big, massive lack of sunshine. So spent a lot of money disappearing, escaping on holidays 3-4 times a year, and the costs of that fairly add up, and it's never long enough. So yeah, I've always been at home for several years and then planned my next great escape.
Right. So you've been to a few countries. You've been you've traveled a lot.
Yes, I have.
Which ones are the memorable ones? Like
I've done a couple of awesome road trips in America. The longest one was 3 months, and that started when I was 17. It's a long time ago. Several decades. So yeah, racked up the miles since then, and mostly holidayed in Thailand, Indian Ocean, back to America again because it's just such a vast country with so much to see. And Sri Lanka, that was absolutely awesome.
Wow.
Really nice place. And then about 8 years ago, in fact, would have been 8 years ago. Sorry, I've been rocking in this chair. I've just noticed.
It's fine.
Really annoying.
It's all good. If it's good for you, it's good for us.
Thanks.
Nice.
Yeah, about 8 years ago, I took a job in Saudi Arabia. So I spent a couple of years over there. And I'm pretty sure all of my friends at home still think I took a job in Dubai and was living it up partying, when in actual fact I was wearing a niqab and an abaya and was in a country that is not open to tourism for a very good reason. And pretty high pressure job, and that knocked the stuffing out of me after a few years. So I came home to rest for not quite a year.
How long did you spend there for? In
just under 2 years.
2 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you adapt to the place? Like, did you feel like home when you were there?
No. People don't go there to find a new home. They go there to fast track their earnings.
Right.
Because it's tax free. Nobody would make it a goal to, I mean, it was an incredible experience and it was a very privileged opportunity. The interviews for the job were in London every weekend for several weekends on the trot. So at that point, I felt like I was on the X Factor, phoning my mum and dad. I can't believe it. I'm through to the next round.
Got the golden ticket.
Yeah, so the final came up. And I was like, oh my God, do they know who I'm not? Like, this is crazy. So yeah, I got the job, and within a couple of months of actually healing, because I know that's what we're here to talk about today,
Yes.
the mind-body connection, after a few months of healing from that, having gone from a wheelchair pretty much to Saudi Arabia, it was just like a massive life turnaround.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was that the time that you spent the most out of, like, away from home, apart
Yes,
from New Zealand?
Apart from New Zealand.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was an easy reach back home. My job was particularly all-consuming, very taxing, so I couldn't really get a lot of time away from the compound. So I did try to get home when possible, and I did make it home a few times. But yeah, it was quite the experience for a single female living in a country where the rules are very different and there's many
Right.
cultural disparities. So yeah, and by the way, if I ever speak too fast, just give me
Yes.
the signal.
Yes. The cool thing is that on YouTube you can slow down
Yeah.
the speed of the video.
Oh.
So if you don't mind, just bring your microphone a little bit closer, because
Sure.
you cannot do anything about that on YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's so people have to be smart enough to slow down when you're talking and go a little bit faster when
Yes.
I'm talking. So I think they'll manage that. Interesting what you said about adapting to a country like Saudi Arabia, because I met a few Saudi students who came to
Wow.
Fitianga. Yeah, one of the language schools, they would bring some students from there, and lovely guys, mainly guys. That was one of the things that I noticed.
Yeah.
You know, like the majority of, I think I met one girl, if I remember well. But I remember them talking about the relationship with women, and that was very different from what I was, from what I'm used to. So I just wanted to add a question there, because we're going to talk a little bit about traumas and all those things. So what were the main things there, the differences that was hard for you to get used to or to understand?
There were very many. You couldn't socialise. So I guess the training that I've had through...
Is it with anyone, or like male, female sort of thing?
Male, female, but also there aren't venues, there aren't pubs
Yeah.
that you can go to. Alcohol's illegal. You can't just go and meet up with a mixed group in a coffee shop. If you are single, there's a singles area inside that place, which I discovered upon visiting IKEA to furnish the house that they'd provided me with for the job, and to sit in the cafe and all of a sudden realise everyone's looking at you. So yeah, I was sitting in the family area as opposed to the couples area, which is cordoned off. So yeah, it's all very respectful of the laws and the customs for that country. But mainly it was just, wearing the niqab and the abaya. They mostly wore burqas, but if you weren't there and born and brought up there, although I did have my residency for the country, because you have to have that before you arrive, you can't visit. It has no tourism industry. So most people go because of a job or because a family member has a job and they're joining them. And it was very different, but I wasn't really exposed to a lot of the real Saudi life, because bearing in mind I'm on a compound, and it sounds terrible, but it wasn't. It's King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, so it's a graduate university. So you already have your degree in order to go there, and then you're studying very specialist fields. And it's on the Red Sea, so it's coastal. So we had a beautiful university campus, and a couple of restaurants. We had a gym, your fitness centre, the male side of it, which was separate to the female side of it. Everything's separated. But we are fortunate on the compound where the strictness of the customs was relaxed a little bit. You could wear conservative clothes as long as, you covered up pretty much. I could wear my business suit. So my ankles weren't showing, you weren't showing too much. So yeah, it was very, very easy to just slot into that way of life once you've been there for a few months. But at first, I guess it's more the nervousness of I'm absolutely terrified to do anything wrong, but everyone's very welcoming and lovely people.
That was my next question. Did you feel like some men were aware of the regulations, but they were kind of like, oh, you know, we actually don't like this. It's just the way that it is. Or it's so rooted that they just act naturally, and that's what it is.
Yes, it's very rooted, and everyone seems okay with that. I think it really depends on what family dynamic you're in, depending on, I mean, not for me because I'm a Westerner living in their country to serve a purpose and fill a job role, but as a Saudi national, I guess you'll have your stricter families and then you'll have your families that aren't so strict. But in general, I mean, I had a couple of really good friends there who I said to them, so when you go to Dubai to escape for, you know, a little getaway, that's your holiday, do you take your burqa off and just wear your niqab and abaya, or do you ever just wear like a top and some jeans? And they were like, oh my God, no, would feel absolutely naked.
Wow.
And they actually made it to the point where they said it would be like you walking down the street in your bikini. You'd feel completely exposed and very vulnerable because it's just conditioning. It's what you're used to.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly normal.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you learn any of the language? Like
Just the basics.
just the basics.
Yes.
And did they have someone from there teach you, or did you learn before you went? or-
Everybody's English speaking on the campus.
Yeah.
So all the faculty, all the students, it's an English teaching. You know, it's everything spoken and taught in English. So that was a major bonus for me. So it was a very interesting job.
What year was that?
That was 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went back to Scotland
Yeah.
and already planning a next move, or things just happened and life brought you to New Zealand? Did you have something in mind?
Yeah, I really tried. I thought I'm going to stay home this time. I had my own house and I thought I'll just make most of it. You know, I've had a bit of an adventure that wasn't a rest, so I'm going to rest for a while. So I thought I'll maybe take a year out and just get creative. I love interior design and furniture restoration, so I just got the tools out and had some fun. And yeah, I mean, that lasted for so long. And then the old itchy feet crept in again. God, they're expensive, honestly. And really inconvenient. It's like, oh my God, I have to face moving again. So yeah, I've always had an affiliation with New Zealand. I did my year out in New Zealand. I was working for the police in the UK.
Oh,
And,
wow.
That's pretty cool.
I took a year out to come to New Zealand, and I ended up interviewing for a jailer's position with the Queenstown Police.
A jailer's?
Yes.
To work in the prison?
Not just the holding cell at the police station.
Wow.
So it's like if you went out on the weekend and were naughty, and
That's where you
got
went.
taken to
Got
the
to meet
cell.
you.
Yes. So you'd get put in the naughty corner, and I'd have to make sure you stayed there. So
wow.
and it just didn't throw me enough work.
And Queenstown's so busy too, so you have do they remember you on the streets the next day?
Do you know, that's hilarious. But nobody really did anything wrong, and the reason I wasn't
You were waiting
in that
for it,
for more
I
than
guess. You were like, come on, guys.
yeah, I was desperate for someone just to get like thrown in the cells, and I'd be like, "That, how would you like your dinner?" That's what I said. I said, "Where's the slot in the door?"
Yeah.
Oh no, you just open the door and like hand them to it. I was like, "Have you seen the size of me?"
Wow. Were you doing something similar when you were working in the UK
Nope.
as a police?
I was running the camera enforcement unit for the road traffic cops. So it was a civilian role. So yeah, I had hoped to join up with the police, but I just knew deep down that the itchy feet were going to get in the way of that. And I thought, no, don't commit. Don't commit.
Don't commit, yeah.
So yeah.
Caz,
Yeah.
cool, because like obviously, you know, we're here to talk about you, but like we're going to get into the mind-body syndrome, which is, you know, something that we all want to learn more about. But it's just interesting to hear your journey because it shows this adaptability. You know, I didn't know about these things. So like you've done so many different jobs, in different countries, everywhere,
Place.
which is awesome, which is cool. So how was the thing with your family when you were younger? Like, were they also in that vibe, like metamorphosis, you know, like always changing, doing different things, or you come for a more like traditional, was that a good word? I don't know.
very, very opposite. Like, they wondered where I came from, to be honest. Although my brother, he's done a lot of traveling as well. He's a professional drummer. So
Shout out.
yes, absolutely.
My man.
Yep.
Yes, I remember you, my man.
So that's Alan Brown, and he's still in Scotland, but he got all of his travelling years over and done with, and then came home to buy a house and well, not settle down, because neither of us have particularly managed to stay in the one place too long. But yeah, Mum and Dad said, was it anything we did?
Sorry, so just the two of you, right? Just you and your brother, right?
Yeah, and we
What
were
do we do?
yeah,
why are you leaving us?
Why? This is weird. So yeah, we were just, I guess, I don't know, dropped on our heads. Yeah, we just had so much fun as a family, massive amounts of fun. Mum and Dad were very, I mean, we knew they were the parents and they were in charge, but they were also our best friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, for someone to end up in the chronic pain condition, it doesn't always stem from childhood issues, because there's absolutely nothing I can look at and say, you know, no wonder I ended up in that mess, because that happened to me.
Are they both still alive?
Yes.
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 Do you remember them experiencing some sort of like struggle or pain or like something when you were young? Do you have any memories of that, or not really? No.
No, nobody. The odd back issue with my dad, but nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing that was chronic. No.
Right.
My Alan, he's kept very well. So yes, we've had, but this is what you'll learn. It's not always about that. It's a personality problem.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's dive into it. So you are is the title right? Mind body what
Messenger.
Messenger.
Yes, as in don't shoot me. I have information, but not
Okay.
a great deal of it. But this is the cool part. You don't have to know a lot. You don't have to become a specialist in this in order
Right.
to experience the healing process.
Right. So maybe we can start there, just so the people at home they know what is about to happen here. So like, you're not a doctor.
Nope.
Right. So just take us through that part of your job, of what your mission,
Yep.
like as someone who knows about health but doesn't hold something. So
Yeah. Okay, so we'll kind of start at the end of the journey where I healed.
absolutely.
And
Yes,
then we
please.
can go back just to explain to you what I do provide in the way of a service to other people.
Yes, please.
At the point that I discovered how the brain operates in order to keep you very much engaged in the physical pain syndrome and the mental pain syndrome, it's a distraction process. I could not believe what I'd just learned, because I thought if people were taught this in school, we would know how to not get ill and in pain in the first place. So really, when I'm not the only person that's had this paradigm shift, other people have discovered Dr. Sarno, who we'll talk about. And, you know, Howard Stern discovered him. So Howard Stern has videos on Dr. Sarno on YouTube, and Hollywood producer, or a producer of some sort, Michael Galinsky, he ended up making a movie about Dr. Sarno. So to get back to when I learned, I would find videos on YouTube about Dr. Sarno's work. I'd be all over his audiobooks, but there was nobody for that personal connection.
Mhm.
So that would have been invaluable for me to just have that connect with someone that you can have on the end of the phone and say, okay, I'm at this stage in my learning. I can't believe this has happened. I don't even know how it's happened. What happens next? Because when you learn the personality type of a TMS, or the mind-body syndrome, also called tension myoneural syndrome, when you learn that personality type, you learn that they're seekers. They have to understand it's all up in the head space.
Right.
So when people are healing from that and they're realising their personality type has been the cause of everything they've experienced, they just want to speak
Mind-blowing.
to someone.
Right. So I appreciate you being here to share
Oh, thank
your
you.
knowledge with,
Thank you
with
for
us.
having me.
That's super cool. That's our mission, you know, like to bring people who have experienced things in life and are keen to share and have a chat. So we appreciate you sharing your personal
Thank you.
journey. When did things start to get weird? How old were you? What happened that you were like, whoa, wait, this is not me? What?
Early teens. And just to say before this, I haven't actually had any mind-body consultations for around 1.5 years because I've stepped back from the whole thing for reasons I'll explain later.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm probably a little bit rusty, but I think, you know, if I'm not working from notes and I'm just working from that source space, then it's telling a story, it will flow. So let's hope for the best with that.
I believe that most of the questions are within anyway.
Yes.
So sitting with yourself for 1.5 years, I'm sure it taught you a lot, right?
Yes.
Cool.
The inward journey is always far deeper, isn't it?
Cool. So you were talking about your teenager years?
Yes, that's when it started. I started to become very aware of just kind of chronic back pain. I would be
lower back or
it
just...
didn't matter where the pain was so long as it was felt, which will make sense to you shortly.
Okay.
But yeah, I would have like a neck spasm. So I'd be the special one sitting in the class like, oh my God, I can't even turn round, you know, just... It was a nightmare. So from that to the middle back, and then it would hop to the low back, and then sometimes knee pain, then sometimes sinus problems, and sometimes, you know, just the whole digestive system. You know, people that have mind-body disorder usually have IBS and sinus blockages, and it's everything from aches and pains to digestion, sinuses, right up to your autoimmune. This is some serious stuff here.
Were you into sports?
No. I never could be. And that's the thing
Right.
now. I don't have that drive for fitness, even though like it's just not been ingrained in me. I had to sit out of that stuff. But despite, I mean, it sounds like I must have stood out a mile at school, right? But that's not the case. I just shrunk into the background. I didn't let anybody know how I was feeling. Nobody would have guessed. Even now, if anybody from my homeland would probably listen to this, they would not have had a clue that I had been going through.
Right. So you would share with mum and dad maybe, like at home?
Yeah, at a push. But I had very...
Yeah, you're a teenager at the same time. You're not going to tell people.
Yeah, and also the TMS personality type, the mind-body syndrome, the people that are susceptible to it most, we're all susceptible to it. There's a personality type that really seems to bring it about more than others. It's very, very considerate. It's always thinking of other people. So for me, I had massive burden issues. I didn't want to be a burden to anyone, least of all the people I love the most. So yeah, mum and dad spent a lot of time taking me to the chiropractor, to the massage guy, and then it became, as the teenage years progressed, because it was very easy to hide. Funnily enough, it used to happen on holiday. But there's a very good reason why that happens too. So we will also get into that. But yeah, I never had a straightforward holiday. Every time had some downtime, that would be when it would just attack me. So it became really frustrating, and it's a terrific recipe for self-hate, because you think this is just shit. This is just this thing that's happening to me and it's controlling me. I don't know. I don't see anybody else going through this. It's just stopping me from having a normal life.
Yeah, you mentioned chiropractors and I guess like massage or whatever. Like, did you get to go to doctors, like to real doctors at it? Do you have memories of that? Like looking for who is the specialist? What should we do?
An X-ray for back pain? I don't know. Like,
yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. Like, who would you go for?
I've been round all those loops for the best part of 2 decades, from one to the next, and then you might have a year's reprieve where you think, I only had 3 spasms that year that were probably worthy of seeing a massage person. And then the following year it might be so bad and so chronic that mum and dad would be like, okay, we need to go back to the doctors and see if there's anything deeper at play here. So there's not an X-ray, an MRI, a specialist that I haven't seen. There's not a medication that they haven't trialed. There's not... When you're desperate and you're in that state, because bearing in mind, this probably came on in my early teens, so maybe even 12, 13.
Oh, wow.
No, that's quite young.
Yeah, so I'm now 43, so I've only had 10 years of not being in chronic pain. So you've had from the age of 13, let's say, to the age of 33 of having this like chronic nightmare, a malady of symptoms, not just the back pain. it seemed to hop from one place to the next, and it was like this chasing game of this is better now, and now it appears somewhere else or in some other form, which makes complete sense to me now.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever do you remember having, this is a bit of a heavy question, but why not? Did you ever had suicidal thoughts as a teenager?
Nope, none whatsoever. I felt very much inside my head, because the personality type that's hit with this most is they live a lot inside their head, and we don't realise that other people don't. So it's when you have the comparison that you think, wow, so some people don't have all this head noise going on. So I think whilst you're living in that head space, you're not in a centred space, and that's what can do damage. We just don't know that this is a process that happens. So your brain distracts you with a very real physical pain distraction, because it's keeping you away from emotional stuff. Even though there's no trauma, there's actually no reason why someone with zero trauma, but just the personality type. Yeah. And so let's discuss the personality type.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm curious about that. Yeah.
I'm like invested. I want to know.
Yeah.
Is there an online test nowadays? Everything is online. Personality
Post
test.
some links and stuff for YouTube videos after this.
Yeah. So just remember, I'm not a specialist. So I'm coming from very much I've learned what I've learned, and I'm sharing it with people, because I believe we all have a basic
you got 30 years of learning under your sleeve, don't you? So
yeah, and there hasn't been a twist and turn I haven't experienced probably 10 times over. So so the personality type is it's tension myoneural syndrome. So first off, there's tension there. It's the perfectionist, the goodist, as Dr. Sarno would say. So someone who is very much the problem solver, very much the fixer, the person that everybody comes to because they know that they'll get their full attention. They'll get a lot of assistance. They'll get really practical guidance and advice. They'll probably be handheld along the way, because this person's just a very good person who consciously wouldn't choose to be any other way. So for me, I had no idea that behind the scenes in the subconscious, there's an awful lot of rage generated.
You only know what you know, right? You're just being yourself.
And it's subconscious, so that is below your level of consciousness. It's not on your radar at all. So the subconscious has a lot of deposits of rage, because you're constantly doing things that it doesn't want to do, because we won't get into like the id, the ego, and the super ego, because that's heading down a road that we don't really have to go down. Right. We'll keep it as simple for people as possible, and just try not to bring in any complexities. So the id, which is the child part of us, is raging because you're doing all this good stuff, and it's like, what about me? Yeah. What about me?
Being a yes man. Yeah, doing everything for other people.
Yeah, taking all this chaos and stress from other people.
Yeah.
Without channeling properly, I guess I would say, because the child wouldn't know how to, right? So our inner child kind of gets like, oh.
Tantrum.
And you're a perfectionist, so not only will you offer that assistance, you'll offer it to the most impeccable degree that tomorrow there'll be 2 people turning up at your door.
Yeah.
True.
So we tend to gather people that need help or guidance or something fixed, so we become the fixer. So for me to learn that my personality type was also the worrier that lives in my head, at first I thought, that's not me at all. I'm not the worrier. I'm not the person that worries. I'm the person that copes. So that doesn't resonate with me. And then the more you listen to Dr. Sarno, all the other little intricacies of the perfectionistic, goodist personality type, it's like alarm bell, ding,
Maybe
ding,
that
ding.
is me.
Yeah. By the way, that's most of us. Most of us are good people. So this mind-body syndrome, it's not like, oh, wow, I know this girl that this happened to. You look around, there's very few people that don't. However, I'll tell you a funny story about why the bad guys don't get sick. Have you ever wondered that?
No, here we go.
Why is it never the bad guys that get sick? It's always the loveliest, goodest people that end up getting ill, and everyone, the famous kind of question.
Yeah. Do you have a go?
Why is it never
Christine?
the bad guys?
Do I have a
go? Why the bad guys don't?
No, but now that you've said it, you're like, that makes so much sense, because all the bad things always happen to the good people,
Yes.
right? Yeah, so
True.
this is the reverse story.
So it's just like
why
not-
doesn't anything bad happen to the bad people?
Not stressing, they just reckless, they just don't care, so there's no
Well, take it to-
accumulation
yeah.
of things.
Yes, yes,
Is it
spot
because
on.
they're like self-centered? They just care about them, so they don't let themselves get sick? Is it?
Gold star to each of you.
Jeez.
So to explain that a little bit further, if we take it to the extreme degree so we can really see how this happens, if you were a narcissist and you had no, because good people they're empaths, they feel other people's feelings, they're thinking constantly. The narcissist personality type doesn't have any headspace for anyone else to be on their radar. They never do anything they don't want to do. Therefore, there's no rage generated in the subconscious. And it's when the subconscious gets to a critical level of overspilling into the conscious that your brain takes a very real decision to give you a physical pain distraction. To keep you away from the stuff that it feels you would not be able to cope with if you saw it, because it's just too dark and you're just too good a person.
It makes sense. It's actually quite simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually quite simple.
It is. It is. In essence, this is it.
Going back in history, because I'm always interested on how we go back, like we live in a society, we have this system operating, like how our minds would play in a time where we were in that survival mode. Would that stress help us in a way at the time?
Well, yeah, absolutely. But it would also return to homeostasis, which is your equilibrium. It's your balance point. So when the nervous system is stimulated, it will return to, the parasympathetic nervous system comes into play when the threat is gone. So it's like, excellent, we're not being chased anymore. So let's return to homeostasis and we'll go back and find food and do whatever we were doing. So it returns to normal. But in modern day society, there's not a lot of opportunity to return to normal because things just keep on happening and opportunities keep on being presented to stay in that switched on nervous system mode, where it's overactivated and it doesn't quite get the chance to return to balance.
Right. When was what was the moment? When was the moment that things got dark and hard and you were like, man, this is not sustainable?
Yeah, so throughout my 20s was particularly difficult on the heart, because you recognise you're not capable of doing the things that your brain is capable of. So you have goals, big ambitions, and I think this is where the testing myself and the moving to different countries and the travelling often on my own and doing quite extreme things. I think that's where that came from, because I always knew that I'm going to just do this whilst my body's still working, because it's not been great. And it was almost like I was trying to prove something to myself, that I could still do these things. So yeah, I think through my 20s I did a lot of travelling and proving to myself. And then my 30s hit and things changed a little bit. And the respite period in between the muscular spasms got shorter. So I thought, this isn't good. This is really not good. I actually dearly wish that I'd grow out of this. With all the research I do, all the people I go to, sometimes I take massive periods out just to sit and be with myself. And, there's not a single thing I hadn't tried to get out of this horrible, vicious cycle that was really inhibiting my life. So I did meet someone early 30s. And he was terrific, lovely guy. It only lasted a couple of years maximum, because that was the time where the spasms started to really increase in their intensity. And he was very caring, very giving, very much the caregiver, and really susceptible to the mind-body stuff himself. But he wouldn't look at that. So yeah, it was a grim time where the spasms got so bad I ended up in neurology ward, and it was too much for me to take, having him in my life, because in fact it must have only been just over a year, and I felt, this is too new, he needs to just get on with his life. He was super active, super fit, And all of a sudden he'd became my carer, and a very willing one.
Right.
I just didn't have the headspace anymore. I
So
thought,
so even something that was great and good for you,
yeah,
in your mind you were like, I'm holding this
I'm
guy
out.
back. So you decided like that's not sustainable. That's not good for him.
yes.
Wow.
So yeah, there were.
How did he react? How did he react with that?
It was awful. It was absolutely awful, because he said that should be his call, not mine.
Wow.
But I just, when you're in that dark place, I guess it must be like, you know, depression. The people around you, they cop it the most.
Yeah.
And you don't want to hurt them, I guess. So you would probably push them away. And it's the same with chronic pain. You just don't need reminded of how much of a failure you are by the fact that someone that used to go out walking with you now has to carry you from the living room into the bedroom. So you can get some sleep in the afternoon because you have the life of an 80-year-old.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, and I was very fortunate that Alan, my brother, he was at home at that point in time, and he lived in the house right across the street, which is cool. We had we had laser pen fights right up until 6 years ago when I left for New Zealand. Laser pen fights across the street with different signals that meant different things. One was drink, the other one was movie, and the other one was like, come over and I'll cook you dinner. So yeah, that was excellent. So Alan became like, just, we're super close anyway. Yeah. So he would come over and check on me because I didn't want to tell mum and dad that I'd been bedbound for 2 days. I just thought, I'll just tell them I'm busy today. I'll text them, tell them I'm busy, and I'll catch them tomorrow night, because we saw each other most days. They lived round the corner. We live in central Scotland and everything's very accessible. So they would often pop in. So I would just make my excuses, say I was busy. So again, the personality type of not wanting to upset and disturb anyone. And it was hard for them, you know, to see their daughter not have a life that I guess they would have wished for, because it's just always being held back and never having any real answers, always almost getting there. Because the scans, I mean, they showed postural scoliosis. I have postural scoliosis. They showed up another couple of things, which I now know is perfectly normal and has no requirement to have the manifestation of pain as a result of it. People have those things and have no pain.
So when you got those results, when you went to the doctor and he came up with that, was that like an indication of, oh, maybe a surgery or a treatment? Of course.
Yes, and that was probably my early 20s, I think they came up with that.
Straight away? Or was there like, oh, let's go through a procedure and try to heal this?
Did you have surgery? No.
No, thank heavens.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say,
thank heavens.
That would wreck you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, a lot of people that find their way to me, I don't go out looking for people to help. They have to find me. It's a very personal journey, and it's a very sensitive situation. So I don't go out trying to convert people with this amazing, almost superpower. You know, it's like, oh my God, I've discovered this thing that we all need to know. So they find me, and yeah, everybody's had, most people have had a couple of surgeries under their belt already, and they're absolutely fine once so if anybody's listening that has had surgeries that might go through the absolute regret of it, I mean, don't have the regret there, because once you know what your brain does to distract you with very real pain, there's no more pain so physical as the pain that your brain prescribes you, because it all comes from the brain, right? So yeah, most people have had something.
Were you scared, or were you hopeful when they came to you and said maybe a surgery will help?
Delighted.
Yeah, because it's any answers, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, you're desperate for a label. You're desperate for a label because for years you've been passed from pillar to post, from specialist to specialist, and there's just no answers there. There's none. We can definitely see there's something really wrong, but it's just sometimes it's such a complex structure that it's hard to get to the bottom of what it could be. And a few family doctors over the years tried to, now looking back I can see what they were asking me. They said, do you do any practices for stilling the mind? And I thought, wow, that's interesting.
Like meditation?
Yeah.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And I said, on and off. I don't do anything to the extreme, so like nothing religiously. Why? And they said, well, I mean, stress can play a part in very physical pain manifestations. I'm like, oh, wow, tell me a bit more about that. And they can't, because they're not taught the intricacies of this during their medical training. It's only really when you get to the, you know, the neurology side of things, the specialist routes, that's really dug up. And even then, there's this nervousness about sharing it with people.
Right. So the neuroscientists, the people who look after the area, so they are specialized in the brain. Is that correct? Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Cool. So you found someone on that level, like that they came. How was the journey to find some light?
It was in my early 30s when things had gotten particularly bad, and there wasn't much rest in between the spasms. So I think my pelvis used to twist like round to the right and this up slip. So obviously walking is agony. So I had gotten to the stage where usually the span of the spasm would take, if it was my lower back, a couple of weeks, but I never missed out on much work or school or anything through this duration. It was always soldiering through, just pretending to people, oh, I've just got a dodgy back, it's just gone out again, you know, just minimal information. So yeah, as I approached the kind of 32 mark, I thought I've absolutely had enough. So my family stepped in and said, right, we need to do something here. So they contacted a member of, one of their friends who knew someone who could maybe help. So I said, who is this guy? He says, oh, he's a neurologist. I went, oh, wow, that's probably the only specialist I haven't been referred to. That's interesting. So, I did. At that point, I was desperate and would have tried anything. So I had a couple of consultations with someone he referred me to.
Sorry, in Scotland?
In Scotland, yeah. So I was probably 32 by this time, as I said, and we'd had a couple of meetups, and he asked me some questions, and he says, yeah, I can really see, like, your pelvis is facing that way, and your torso is facing that way. This must be absolutely hellish for you. And I says, I just want it gone. I'd do anything. I've had no answers. It's not been a few months of no answers. It's been a few decades, and I've had enough. So when you asked about the dark times, that was probably it.
That was it,
yeah. That was it. Especially when, I was referred properly through, he said, yeah, we're going to send you to a hospital in Glasgow, and we'll do some tests. We'll do the brain scan, the lumbar puncture and all these things, because we have to go by the process of elimination. So first and foremost, if anyone is having any pain conditions at all and they resonate with what I'm saying here today, you have to still go and get checked out. There's some basic responsibilities you have to take for your own health and get checked to make sure there's nothing broken, there's no clots, you know, there's a very real need for the medical profession. Super important people, but we don't know the half of what our brain causes us to happen to our health. And I actually learned inside neurology. I had gone for, I think I was in overnight, I was getting my lumbar puncture, and it was my 4th appointment by that time. It was following the lumbar puncture. I had a chat with the neuropsychologist, and again, they were asking me these emotion-based questions. So that was
for the first time in all these years. Oh, no.
For the first time in all these years, yeah. So the first few consultations with the neurologist went the same way. So it didn't really hit me then. I went home and thought about it, and I thought, that's really interesting. They're asking me what was happening in my life round about the time that the spasms would come on. So I never thought anything more of it until I went into the actual hospital.
So that also made you feel good about having a professional going in that area, right? Not just like, oh, this is new, but also, oh, okay, like some human connection there, right?
Totally. However, when someone's asking you emotion-based questions, when you're sitting there, you're like a broken skeleton, and you're like, I'm actually tired of living, guys,
Yeah.
and you're actually asking me
how I
what
feel.
was
Yeah,
happening in
yeah.
my life during that time.
Yeah.
That's the pivotal moment where your delivery has to be impeccable, or you risk letting someone think that you believe it's all in their head. And that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
So you need to be super, super careful how you deliver that, which is what I'm very careful when I'm speaking to people, because I know how it felt for that split moment. And I thought,
No,
I'm
pain's real.
actually
It's real.
insulted. Like,
Yeah.
what? So anyway, I put my ego down,
Yeah.
tucked it away,
Good on you.
and I said, why are you asking me emotion-based questions when you can clearly see I'm broken here? And like, to actually tell you the truth about where I was at that time, I was on really strong dose of Parkinson's medication because I was in such a bad way. They had no idea what it was, even after the brain scans. They had no idea what it was. They couldn't put a label on what I was experiencing, but they didn't look surprised at all. And they just said, you know, there's a lot of things. It's like a supercomputer. Your brain is this supercomputer that just does its thing, and many things you can't explain. So there are things that can be diagnosed in neurology, and there's a whole heap of things that can't, because they just don't know. So now I look at that and I see, wow, okay, there's a heap of things that you have a label for, and there's a heap of people like me who are suffering from the mind-body disorder
Yeah.
that we don't have an opportunity to hear about because you're not legislated to tell us. That's interesting.
Did you feel like a guinea pig, like people giving you drugs and saying, well, let's try that? Or you were actually, well, I got to try, right? I don't know. Like now looking back.
I think, looking back, you would
Looking
think
back.
you were just...
At that point in time, I'd have taken a placebo as long as no one told me it was a placebo,
Yeah.
you know, just give me that. So I didn't like taking pills. So I was very stubborn in regards to taking any medication. I've always been that way, and I still am.
Were there any side symptoms or like anything that was...
That was the worst part.
Yeah.
So not only had the physical taken over my life, and I'm very strong-minded, so it takes a lot to get me into the dark place, but that was my first experience of a really dark place, because the Cinnamate medication, and I think it was it amitriptyline that they put you on, or there was something in tandem with it, and I was very much a zombie. So sleeping constantly, no quality of life. In fact, sleeping was a good part. You got to escape for a couple of hours. So yeah, the no quality of life spanned into the mental. So that very much merged. And I just, at that point in time, when you ask about being suicidal, it just would never have occurred to me to ever be like that at any point in my life. At that point in time, I certainly wasn't suicidal, but I did actually say to my guides, whoever's out there, like whoever's listening, like, if this is it, then I'm done now, so I'm okay with going. And I actually made peace with that.
That's very strong of you.
Yeah.
It's very good.
I think when you're faced with something that you know they know there's something wrong, however, there's no pre-made label for it, all they can do is look at it and say, well, I'm afraid it's degenerative, because all we have is the evidence of your cyclical pattern, which is it's getting worse as you're getting older. So that's the only evidence they had to say we can only surmise that it will get worse as you get older. So to hear someone in a white coat say that, it's extremely confronting. It's like the diagnosis, and knowing what I know about the mind-body syndrome now, I wish doctors would hold back a bit more. I can understand why they don't want to tell someone the truth, because they know the power of the man in the white coat, the woman in the white coat.
Yeah.
Holds huge amount of power.
Yes. That's why we have to be like, well, we got to be honest. It's just your story, but we got to be careful, because people really, you know, like all of us, we really trust the doctors, right? The health system.
Yeah.
We go like, well, the doctor saying he knows more than me, you know. So when the neurologist.
The neurologist?
Neurologist?
Yes. Very good.
So when he started to map that out for you, when he got the personal questions, and what was the next step for him? Did he put you off the drugs, or he tried something?
No, that was a very organic process that was driven by me going back up to my bed that night in the chair.
Wheelchair?
Yeah.
Well, wait, you didn't tell us that part. So that was...
Is it because your hips, you couldn't walk, so you're in a wheelchair? Yeah.
So that was like normal. You spent how long? How long did you spend?
I think that last final spasm was probably lasted about like 4 months before I discovered the connection, and it was incredible. So I mean, that's a long time to spend, because at that point in time, no one came along and says, by the way, this is only going to be for 4 months. Like you're there. And you know, I didn't use a wheelchair. I didn't have one at home because my house was single level. So I used to just amble around, you know, holding on to furniture, crawling on the floor, things like that. So when I say mum and dad did become my carers, I was very reluctant to receive that help. So by the time I ended up in neurology, on the Cinemet, the Parkinson's medication, and on the other stuff, and then these specialists were asking me like what's happening in my life at that time. I was like, fuck, have I missed something here? This can't be happening. I'm in this crazy dream where people are asking me stupid questions, unless they're not stupid questions. Perhaps there is a direct correlation between emotions and pain, but perhaps there is. So I got my iPad out, flicked through Google, typed in emotional causes of physical pain. The standard stuff came up. Healing back pain with emotions. And I mean, it took me a couple of days. Yeah. And then this thing popped up, and it was an interview with Stephen Ray Ozanich. He's the author of The Great Pain Deception. Absolutely terrific book. It really gets into the intricacies of the personality type. It tells you his story, and it goes into, in great depth, the work of Dr. Sarno. So up popped an interview with Steve Ozanich, and he spoke about Dr. John Sarno, Sarno. And
what was his specialty like? So what kind of doctor was John?
He
Sarno?
He would operate on people's backs. He was like a back specialist, and a very well known doctor.
So he got the respect of a doctor. That's good.
And he was great. NYU, very respected doctor, very well known, until he himself. He noticed through the people that would come to see him. Now, bearing in mind, he qualified in his profession, graduated medical school in 1950. So we're talking about a mature gentleman who had been there, done it, seen it all the patients, operated on heaps of, recommended operations for heaps of people, and yeah, I mean, he died in 2017, I think, and he was 94, the day before his 94th birthday. Wow. Absolutely lovely man. Like, people in the TMS world are like, God, he's just everyone's grandpa, and he is. And he's the sort of person that I definitely relate to. He's a free thinker. He looks at things differently and says, wow, so many of my patients, I can do the fusion surgery, or they can have this back operation and then they're fine. And then a few months later, they're back to see me because they've now got this pain in their shoulder, or else they're fine for a few months and then further up their back starting to hurt. Yeah. Or all of a sudden they've developed hip pain, or their back because they've got the most hellish sciatica, all these things, But the other cool thing that he noticed was that they did not just present to him with back conditions, they presented to him with digestive issues, sinus issues, generally not so good immune systems. There was always more than one pain syndrome going on with them. And it's when he looked at it and thought, they're actually all really similar personality types. They're the perfectionists, worriers, the people that want to put everyone else first, the empaths, they're actually very practical. They get up in their heads, they work things out, they find solutions. They find solutions that the average person wouldn't find. But there are a lot of us. We're a common personality type. There's a lot of people like us, So therefore, there's a lot of people stuck in the medical loop of chasing
Right.
specialists, chasing answers, looking for answers. But he spotted that there was something perhaps worth looking into here. So yeah, he did all the research that he could and did a full 360 on how he treated people. So as you can imagine, he wasn't popular at all amongst his peers at NYU. And you'll hear in his interviews, he speaks about sitting in the lunchroom on his own, completely isolated from the rest of them. And he's sitting saying, but guys, I actually know something that's helping so many people. I'm having some incredible results. Why won't you look at this? But it's an interesting comparison to perhaps what we're going through at the moment, and perhaps what happens in any matrix. If it's too painful to look at something because it just means too much loss to you, then you're not going to want to look at it unless you're really brave. So they've studied also for a couple of decades to get to where they have, and he's saying most of what we've learned, we need to relearn this. Because there's this other approach that was actually embraced until about the mid-50s. The mind-body approach was embraced, but in the mid-50s, what happened to change that was the introduction of machines and gadgets and the advancement in actual medicine. So basically, just for a story to illustrate the point, you've got one scientist sitting in a lab and another scientist sitting next door in a separate lab. One of them is working on machines, X-ray machines, medicine, and the other one is working on the subconscious mind and how the subconscious mind interacts with your health. So this is really important because at this point in time, we lost something absolutely crucial to how we moved forward.
Yes.
So the guy sitting with the answers to, I actually know where pain's, I think I can sort pain and help people prevent them from getting ill in the first place by showing you what happens in the subconscious mind and explaining this, and then we can have a therapy, and so anyway, to cut a long story short, you have the other guy who's saying, but look over here, I'm working on, I'm not sure if this is true, X-ray machines, but a machine of some sort, or something you can physically see. So if you were an investor, or you were looking, or if you were there and you had funding, public funding, are you going to give it to the guy that's saying, I've got this invisible thing that's going to do magic for everyone? Are you going to give it to the guy that's got real hard stuff, the medicine, the machines? So I do believe in the mid-50s when that fell away, we lost our way.
Yeah.
Right.
We came from the inside out revolution to the outside in revolution, and things changed drastically.
Right. So I get that, and it's fantastic. I really want to get into like how you started to work on your own mindset, because I think that's the hardest. A lot of us understand concepts very well, but doing it's pretty hard. But I just want to go back to what you just said, and like, we know that medicine, the way that it is nowadays, advanced, it's saving a lot of lives, right? So we have a lot of, facilities, and we have amazing doctors out there really fixing broken people.
Yes.
So what's the danger of thinking that the problem is in your mind when you're actually broken, when you actually need an intervention? So how do you talk to people about that, or how will professionals explain that? You really need to check, how is that issue?
So firstly, with me not being a professional, there's some things you can understand at a very base level that will resonate with you. And this is part of the first little paradigm shift. So when I first learned about the TMS stuff, which doesn't take ages, I literally listened to an audio book that took 3.5 hours or something, and the light bulb went on, and I listened to that same book 4 times.
Yeah, I was going to say, what started the journey down the rabbit hole, I guess, for you? So it's this audiobook. Oh, cool.
Totally. So firstly, to answer your question about how you would explain to someone the difference between the mind-body pain and a very other type of situation, there's an innate intelligence in the body. The body only has one job, okay? So it has been brought here. It's like your carcass, and you've got this bit of magic inside you that's like a soul, let's say. So the soul does what it does. In the body, it only has one job, and that is to heal. So as Dr. Sarno would say, you know, the largest bone in the body is the femur. And if I get things wrong, by the way, it's because I'm not a doctor. So I'm just trying to remember what I learned. So the femur, if it's broken, it will then have a healing process whereby it will fuse itself together and it will become stronger than it was before it broke. So your body is this incredible machine of healing, of repair, of fixing. It's got one job, and the wheels turn and it does its job. So there's a natural healing process to everything.
Yes.
Whether it's a breakage or whether it's a virus or whether it's you name it, you know, you have cuts and bruises. There's a healing process there. So that's the universal intelligence behind the machine. Just knows how to heal. So if you're not healing within the standard time frame of healing and it becomes chronic, the human's getting in the way.
Right. There are signs. So you've got to read the signs.
So if you're in chronic pain and you've had all the checks, like I have, like hundreds and thousands of us have, I'm not unique and special by any means. I'm just one of so many people that have discovered this and want to help other people by passing it on. So if you're in this chronic state of you've tried everything, you've researched everything, you've become a Buddha for a few years and you've tried to just zone out and check out of the world and find your inner peace and nothing's helping, you're still in this chronic state, be it one symptom or another, then the human's getting in the way. So if we were taught at a base level, at a decent age, in fact, any age, it doesn't matter what age you are, clearly. I was 32 when I discovered it, and it was a massive life-changing event. So when you realise that you've gotten in the way of that, then the next question would be, well, that's fine, but what do I do about that, you know?
Yeah, so once you discovered it, so, you know, you said you listened to this audiobook and that sort of sparked something in you. What was the period between that and getting out of the wheelchair? Like, how long was that?
2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Within 2 months, I was on a plane to Saudi Arabia.
Oh, you were out. I'm gone.
Gone, out of here. Second chance at life.
Yeah.
Okay, take us through this process. Again, as I said, like you just from your journey, strong mindset, you know, like going for it. So how was the preparation? What were you doing? What were you telling yourself?
I just couldn't believe it. I mean, this is the exciting part. There's so many people that are like, you know, I'm here today, buy into my program. It's a 12-week thing. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the fastest way possible to understanding your innate health and getting on with your life. That's what you need to be doing, you know?
Yeah.
Our personality type likes to dig deep and get more answers and do something. No, this is time to stop. Stop doing something.
Right.
Once you've learned what it is that's kept you in this chronic state, you put everything down, you go outside and you get on with your life. You find your happiness, you find your peace, you return to that source space and get out of the head space. But people used to talk in riddles before. I'd watch documentaries about healing and they'd all say, we healed because we found our inner peace. And I'm like, but how did you find it?
Where
is
it?
So frustrating.
What's the address for this inner peace?
I know, right?
Yeah.
You have my email address. Eh?
Yes.
Don't worry, I am going to put you all out of your misery and tell you. Look, I received this information for free through some divine intervention that put it in front of me at a desperate moment. So I'm always happy to pass that on for free. I found an audio book on YouTube by Dr. Sarno called Healing Back Pain. And you'll find it on YouTube. It's like the picture of it's like a night sky with lots of stars, and some very helpful person uploaded it to YouTube for free. So after I did the digging on Google and found Steve Ozanich, and he spoke about Dr. Sarno, and then I looked up Dr. Sarno and saw Howard Stern and a heap of other people were like, why don't we know this shit? We need to know this shit. I then started to look for books that Dr. Sarno had done. So Healing Back Pain is the one that was obviously relative to me. The other one that's relative to every other simplex is it's called the mind-body prescription. So one's aimed at healing back pain, but it's exactly the same process your brain takes to distract you than the mind-body prescription, which is a newer book of his, and that's targeted at all the pain syndromes and the mental pain. You know, your brain doesn't care how it distracts you. And then there's the divided mind. So that's his book that's aimed at physicians, but also worth a read because I was able to understand most of it with being nothing to do with medical history whatsoever. So yeah, I had listened to Healing Back Pain, and I just had this absolute moment, and I could hear this banging sound in my head, and I was like, what's that? It's my heart beating. My heart was like, it was like, oh my God, you've totally got this. Yeah. This is it. This is totally it. And I knew I'd found it. So I did a thing that could have been really foolish, but I stood up and I thought, I'm going to bend forward and try and touch my toes. Now, even now, I'm so inflexible. I struggle to touch my knees, never mind my toes. So I thought, I'm just going to do this. So there's no way I could have gotten any forward motion at all before. None. Yeah. Any kind of hinging forward, that would have set off another spasm. So yeah, I tried a few things and couldn't believe that I was able to do it. So then I listened to it again, because when you're already on your butt, you've got crap loads of time on your hands. And when you think you've just discovered the secret superpower, you're like, I need to. So
let me confirm I've heard it right.
Yeah.
So just to make sure that I got it, that was actually not a process or steps that you followed. It was just like knowledge. Knowledge was coming to you. You were making sense of what epigenetics or understanding DNA or things that. I don't want to put 3 amazing or 4 amazing books in a nutshell. We know we're not here to do this. People can go and listen to it. But like, what was coming to you that it was like, this makes sense? Like this, you know, because I feel like people have these moments in life for different things. For some people, it's about what they decide to change, like the way that they breathe, the way that they eat, the way that they walk. You know, like, and it's something that when you know. So I get that well.
The shift moment.
I understand. But like, where does it lie in a very, like, I don't want to go deep in this science of it, but like, if you had to explain to people, like, if you have to say, well, this is what's happening here in your brain, and you got to understand that no one tells you.
No one tells you. It's like, so, we'll leave. You don't even need to know a thing about epigenetics. It just helps you understand more about what we're going to talk about. I can briefly touch on epigenetics. Yep. Again, I'm not even a beginner level in that. I know enough to know, and that's the encouraging thing for anyone who's looking at this thinking, oh, but she's had 10 years of it. No, I actually got my ass out of that crippled state in 3 weeks, and do you know what? I could have done it in 2. So what you're asking about, what did I identify with in the book, was the personality type.
The personality.
When you're hearing about the smallest intricacies of your personality on every page of the book, on every chapter. I mean, it was the audio book because I couldn't even hold a book up.
So you're doing like a mental test, like, I've got that's me.
It was
that's
just
me.
Yeah. And Dr. Sarno would explain scenarios that, you know, you're likely in your teenage years, or you're likely in the parenting years, or you're likely in your retirement years. These are 3 key periods of people's lives where they're going to experience more mind-body distractions than periods that don't quite require them to be distracted quite that much. Because, it's just, it was mind-blowing to have your personality hung out to dry like that, and you're looking at yourself. What happens in that moment is you move from being immersed in yourself to being the witness of yourself. So when you catch yourself doing something or saying something and you think, oh God, that was really perfectionistic. Man, I'm actually a bit uptight. I have so high standards and high expectations of myself. I'm actually brutal. The inner dialogue is like my own sergeant major, and it goes on loop, and it's like, oh my, this is horrific. So that's not news to anyone that's this personality type. We drive ourselves very hard, super high standards, super punishment, massive guilt, shame, all these stupid things that have no real basis. You're like, why am I feeling shame over something I wished I'd said and didn't say, or something I had said or wished I hadn't said?
Yeah.
These are small things. This is ridiculous. So when you start to see yourself from a distance, I had this moment on the second listen where he was explaining something similar like that I just spoke about. And I laughed, and I hadn't had the opportunity to laugh for so long because it hurt too much. I remember I laughed, and the tears were streaming down my face, and it was just that silent laughter where like not a sound came out, just like a pint of water just exuded from each eye at the same time. You're just like, ha, and it was hilarious because you just think, oh my God, I've been doing this to myself, and it could have been so easily fixed if someone had told me this.
Yeah. Have you heard about it from people who had experiences going through this with a therapist? Because again, I like to go back there. It seems to me like that you got the mindset, you got this thing with like, I'm curious, I want to get it going, but a lot of people are not, very insecure. So like, would someone guiding you through that with a conversation, with like making you look at the mirror to find these things within? Have you heard about people who experienced chats? Because sometimes it's the chat that makes a difference, right?
Remember the personality type we spoke about, and it said we're most likely to say, what can we do next and who can we go and see next?
Yeah.
This is it in a nutshell. Right, so we've learned the first step and we're already on to how do we take that a step further? Bring it back. You don't actually need... There would be cases, I guess, Dr. Sarno actually gets into that, about how if you have severe trauma, it's always advisable to have some form of counselling, some form of talking therapy. Absolutely. I mean, that makes sense for anyone that's gone through that, but there's no requirement for that in order to heal from this, because it's a paradigm shift. You have had an intellectual understanding. I can't say there's not been one. It's just this shift that happens. No, I mean, that has to come from an intellectual understanding, because you're reading something or you're listening to something and you're like, oh my God, this paradigm shift has happened. So some people might find it helpful to speak to someone to guide them through it. A lot of people don't need that. But what I've found a lot of people do seem to need is someone to talk to that's been through it.
Yeah.
And that's where my role extends to them, because I know how that feels. And I was actually very lucky that even though I was several months in and I hadn't had anyone to talk to, I was just having this like wicked party inside my own head, like I've got my life back, this is amazing, and then flying down to London every weekend for like 4 weeks in a row trying to get this job, and I'm just like, every day is a freaking bonus, you know. It was just crazy. But I would have dearly loved someone to talk to that had been through it, but life got busy for me immediately. Again, I moved too fast to do things. I went go, no opportunity to just sit with it for a while. Looking back, that would have helped, but during that time I had a little relapse, so I hopped onto the Mind Body forum, and I thought, oh God, like I don't want this to hinder me. I'm in this new job, and that would be really crap. It can't possibly be coming back, you know. So there's going to be these moments, because you've spent decades in chronic pain, and then you have this magic potion, and it's like the magic potion's wearing off. It's wearing off. This is happening. So it would have really helped me at that point in time for someone to say, no. If you remember what Dr. Sarno says, for as long as the human being is capable of experiencing emotion, they're capable of generating very physical pain distractions. So that is forever. That's until you die. So we're always going to experience that. So I got myself into a tiz big time over this relapse, and it lasted longer than it should have, because it would have been helpful. I did find someone that helped me out of that. It was Steve Ozanich. I met him on an online forum about chronic pain, and I flicked him this message, and it says, "You saved my life." And we went offline. I didn't expect a reply. I just wanted to say thank you. So I said, "You saved my life. Thank you." And we went to the private switch of when it goes offline, but he flicked me this message before we went offline, says, here's my private email address. So, I mean, therein has started a 7-year friendship. And
cool.
It was just incredible. So he said to me, man, Caz, you're beating yourself up. Like, I can understand why you're freaking out, because it's your first relapse, and we all freak out after our first relapse.
Yeah.
Because it's like this big moment of the drugs wearing off. Like, the magic drug is just wearing off, and you could go back there. So the first relapse is usually a real dull one for most people. But he said, you never stop experiencing pain, because Dr. Sarno reminds us that for as long, I mean, we're emotional beings. We're all just energy and motion. That's like emotion. We're generating emotions. We have feelings. Our personality type is, you don't need to change a thing about your personality type. That's the best part.
Yeah.
You just need to be aware of the process your brain takes in order to distract you. So he said, the difference now is when you have a signal like that and you have a shoulder spasm like you have, he said, you can take that as a signal that you need to get out of your head and get back into your life.
Yeah.
And he says, and the difference now, he says, because he says, I still have things from time to time, nothing major. He says, but something that would have put you on your ass for 6 weeks before might put you on your ass for a day. So he really soothed me. And he's not a doctor either. He's just a super intelligent, he's a details man.
Yeah.
He gets into the intricacies of everything. So he's dissected Dr. Sarno's work and presented it in such a format that can only make Dr. Sarno proud, because it's very
digestible
respectful
for the crowd, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's a big read. I'm not a reader, as I said, and he's working on the audio format of his book. But he's put so much research and information into presenting this into another format for people who, like me, who have learned through Dr. Sarno's work and healed, but just need that little bit more guidance. So what I'll do now is I'll take you through the process that your brain takes you in order to distract you, because people will probably be at home saying, yeah, but how is this happening?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, what's the first couple of steps of, you know, I guess if they come to you, they already realise that there may be something, right? So, because they have to find you, you don't find them.
Before we get the steps, do you feel like you spend time in your head?
Oh, yeah. Do you?
Yeah.
We all do, just
We all
to
do,
varying
right?
degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially nowadays with so much going on.
Yeah.
So much going on, so much chaos, and the chaos is on the other side of the world, you know, and it sits there, right? It stays there. Okay,
so
I'm ready.
Right. When you have thought about a lot of things and you're starting to worry, and you have a lot of stuff depositing into your subconscious mind, and then you're just your usual lovely self, little Mr. Sunshine, little Miss Sunshine, doing things for everyone, like just eager, keen, yes, I'll do that, yes, I'll do this, and you consciously, as I said, wouldn't have this any other way. And you don't need to change. This is the great thing. You don't need to change a thing about what you're doing and how you're rolling out your life. As long as you're true to yourself, then nothing needs to change. So when the subconscious gets to that critical level of overspilling into your conscious, your brain goes, as I said, shit, he's going to freak out because he's not going to want to see this darkness. She's going to have a meltdown because she's going to see that there's a whole heap of dark stuff in there. And also, if that overspills, they won't be able to cope with that. That's an emotional thing that's going to be a step too far for them.
Yeah.
So they, at that point, have this situation where your brain says, she's a really good person. He's a great guy. We're going to give him a physical pain distraction because that's far more preferable. That'll be less stressful for him than actually seeing what's going on in the emotions. And you can't do both. You can't be in extreme physical pain and extreme emotional thinking at the same time. It's a pendulum. It's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So the longer it keeps you focused and the deeper it keeps you focused on your physical pain, it believes it's doing you a favour by distracting you from something that would be worse than the physical pain. And that's where a lot of people go down the wrong rabbit hole, because they get angry thinking, why would my brain choose to do this to me? This is so unfair. This is just, I hate myself. I'm doing this to myself. You're not. Your brain's doing you a favour. Your brain always strives to serve you. You know, you think about a lemon and you'll start to salivate because your brain is so keen to get you there ahead of the experience because it's trying to help. So at every turn, your brain's trying to help you. So it's gauged you'd rather sit and have a sore leg than sit and have some emotional pain. So it keeps you very much engaged away from that emotional phenomena that it just believes is just too hard for you. So the way it gives you pain, it's completely harmless. And it causes so much pain, it just reduces the oxygen flow, just like a volume button, reduces the oxygen flow about 5% to reach all your, you know, through your muscles, your tendons, your nerves, your cells, just enough to cause you a problem in one or more areas. Usually that problem is isolated to one area. So for me, it would hit my lower back. So if I was lucky enough to have received a placebo crack by someone, or massage, or some treatment, or some new medication, and I had this incredible placebo and went, wow, my back's better, up pops the other pain. And it shows up and you're like, oh my God, I've got knee pain. And it almost happened overnight. I got rid of the leg pain and now I've got knee pain or whatever it is. It'll pop up in a different area. And this is a really cool thing Dr. Sarno noticed. And he called it the symptom imperative. Now, that just means that it's imperative to your brain that a symptom is felt, and it doesn't care where that symptom shows up. It could be your eye or it could be your little toe. It doesn't care, as long as it's keeping you away from this emotional stuff. Keep them away, you know, we'll just keep them engaged in this. So that's why when you have that placebo cure, your brain goes, oh my God, now we need to pick something else. But it's very clever, and it will pick areas that you had pain before because it's less effort to get you to believe that there's a problem there.
Right.
So with the oxygen flow reduced, that's all that's happening to you, but it's bloody painful. So that can affect your digestive system, your aches and pain. It affects everything. So just a 5% reduction in that oxygen flow is just enough to stuff you up and keep you engaged heavily in the physical, in the pain body, you know. So the great thing about that is that it's totally harmless. You haven't done any long-term damage to your body because it's been robbed of 5% oxygen all this time. It's just been clever enough to know that in the beat of a heart, it can reduce the oxygen flow through your autonomic nervous system just enough to keep you focused here and not focus over here.
Did you get into breathing techniques? Did you work
there he
on
goes
that?
again.
Oh,
there he goes again.
Oh no, because you know, because it really, well, it's king, right? It can make you stressed. It can make you anxious.
And you're
just by the breathing, right?
However, once you get into this work, you'll realise that you shouldn't be doing anything with a view to, if I do this, this will fix me. Because your brain will hop right onto that again, and it will be like, when he stops doing this, that's when we'll come back.
When you stop.
You know? I think I phrased it wrong. I mean, like, did you become more aware, let's put it that way, of that thing? Because once you're out of your head, you know, at least that's what I try to do. When I'm out of my head, you know, I try to become more internal with my breathing, for example, you know, like I try to touch in different areas of my body and try to go there and feel. So maybe I just phrased it wrong. Like, did you become more aware of things happening within?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just being a cheeky Scot.
It's
I knew
good.
exactly what you were getting at, but you're right. So long as you're not doing something with a view to fix yourself.
Yeah.
Because you know what's happening now, so you don't need to go poking that bear any longer. It is what it is, and you just get on with things that are pleasing. So if you enjoy the breathing side of things, and you enjoy going to yoga, and you enjoy doing whatever it might be,
you're doing it
then
for you,
you're
not
doing
to
it for
fix.
you, not to fix
Gotcha.
something. That's super important, because this is the other rabbit hole where people can get lost in there for decades. So I often find people that have discovered Dr. Sarno some time ago and said, that really worked for me at the time, but for years after that, it just didn't. And I'm like, what were you doing at that point where things started to come back? And what were you thinking about it? So you get people looking at what they were doing.
Yeah.
So yes, that's very true. But when you talk about going in the way, I understand what you're asking there, because that's so important. So where that matters is that the more our personality type can get out of the head space and into the source space, that can exist anywhere for someone. For me, it's this tummy-centered place. So when I'm in my head, I will return to this place that I can't describe. Some people, they might have it in the heart space. Some people might have it here. It doesn't really matter, as long as you know there's a place that's in you that you feel is just that kind of, that soul space, where there's the innate working away and it's just being. Then that forces you into the presence of feeling and out of the thought space. And this is where this incredible lady, Hannah Studley, her name's spelled Chana, so tempted to call her Chana so people can find her. But Hannah Studley, she hopped onto one of the TMS forums, and people were having this relapse bonanza. So she hops on occasionally and tries to help people, and she's going through the whole TMS discovery of Dr. Sarno too. But there was another couple of guys on the TMS Facebook page, and Eddie Lindenstein and Brad Gutting, and they're super helpful administrators, so they keep things real. They're very strict with people, so if someone came on and says, well, breathing exercises help my TMS, you'll get slapped down by both of them, and they'll pull you right back on track. Because we like to digress, we like to find what can we do? No, out of the doing into the being.
Stop trying to find what to do.
So Eddie Lindenstein's podcast is really good as well. And Brad Gutting, he'd posted something, and it was only a year and a half ago, and this is why I've taken a step back for a year and a half, because something changed again, another paradigm shift. So he posted something really simple like, have you considered that TMSers, or personality type, most people in the world, don't actually feel the feelings? They're actually in their head trying to rationalise their way and make a plan to get out of the feelings, to get out of the situation that's happened to them. So they completely bypass the feeling part. And something just went, light bulb moment for me. All this time, I would have sworn that can't be true, because I feel things even more than the average person. I'd say, not to make a special case of myself, I'm talking about generally with the personality type. I really feel things deeply, and the emotional pain is just so severe. If I feel something, or the injustice, and you just take this all on. And it occurred to me for the first time that I hadn't been feeling any of those feelings. I'd been in my head, getting upset about it, getting angry about it, figuring a way out of it, making a plan.
Doing.
And this came at the back of a relapse that I had a year and a half ago, and a lot was going on in my personal life at the time, and it was painful. And I wound up, I think I was on week 6, and I thought, I can't believe this has happened. Usually a relapse will last a day. And now I'm 6 weeks in. This is hellish. So fortunately, it was just after lockdown, the very first one that we had. So there was a great deal of time to just, have the experience without standing out like a sore thumb and being this person that's now crippled. So that's why I'd gone back onto the TMS page just as a watcher, just to see, because I thought, I don't want to go down this road again. This is just not looking good. And Brad posted this thing. And I thought, oh my goodness. And at the same time, Hannah Studley, she's the author of a book called Painless that's awesome. She practices the 3 principles, which in essence is returning to source. So that's really important. But Hannah had posted this thing to say, you're either in your thoughts or you're in your life. You can't be in both. So with having these 2 new things to the table that happened in this perfect storm, one of them taught me, hadn't been feeling. Maybe this was the reason for the semi-regular relapses. Weren't a big deal. They lasted a day or 2 until that moment in time. And Hannah coming along and saying, you can't be in both. You're either in your thoughts or in your life. So I reached out to her and I said, I like what you said. I'm not sure what it means, but it's really struck a chord with me and I'm keen to know more. Entered the 3 principles. So the 3 principles, I can't even explain it. But again, another paradigm shift happened and it was very simple. I'll keep it simple because there's a lot of things we've spoken about here. And it's not like you'll only heal if you know about the 3 principles. It's not about that, because it's hard to answer now, but someone did say to me, if you discovered the 3 principles before you discovered TMS, do you think you would have had that paradigm shift and healed from that? Because it's far simpler. And I can't answer that because I didn't have that experience.
Yeah.
So for me, it was an invaluable experience to go through the TMS side of things, because to learn a lot about your personality type and your behaviours, it makes you see yourself in a completely different light. So as I say, you become the watcher of yourself. You start to observe your behaviours and you start to see, oh, I did that, and that's the perfectionist trait, and that's probably, not going to help in the long run. It's going to drive me back into my headspace. So along came Hannah and just said, Hannah, she's going to give me a row for that. She's become a good friend too. She's awesome. She's based in Israel, but she's British. And she had said, have you ever considered that the TMS information is like, it's not necessary to dig that deep, perhaps. She says, I understand it's helpful, and like you say, it's been really beneficial, so I totally get that it's just this amazing discovery, and she's a huge fan of Dr. Sarno. He put her on the right path too. She says, I'm trying to simplify it for you because I can see you're looking for an answer and you've gone through the TMS standard loops. She says, but can you just take it that instead of being like, oh, all this stuff's been put in the subconscious and now it's overflowing and it's giving me this thing. She said, that's a whole lot of thinking. Yeah. She says, how about you just look at it that, oh, there's my alarm bell. I've spent too long in my head again, and come back to that presence place. So that cut out everything else. So I became almost redundant in my own role of assisting people through the mind-body process, because I'd learned something new.
Well, but that seems to be like the role of a teacher, for example. The teacher will understand very complicated concepts, and he will try to make it simple to people. So, like, of course, the job that was done was fantastic and so necessary, because nowadays we need all these proofs, we need someone who is going hard and getting details sorted. But then people start to come up with easy basic concepts that make much more sense, right? And that's what I like when you say, oh, we should be teaching kids, we should be telling young people about these things. If you start to throw a lot of complicated vocabulary and it's not, but you go deep in the brain and everything, it sounds hard, right? It sounds tiring. So it makes sense that the simple should be.
It's so simple. Returning to that source place. And to me, when I learned a bit about the 3 principles, it's actually a really broad Scotsman called Sydney Banks. I think he's dead now too. He discovered this really simple technique, and it's not even a technique. It's not even an intellectual understanding. You just hear a few quotes, and then this paradigm shift happens again. Just as simple as, you're either in your thoughts or in your life.
So is that one for you?
That's
is that cause
huge?
Yeah,
absolutely huge. So that the sciatic pain and the lower back spasm that had me crippled for 6 weeks, coupled with what Brad had said, and it went away, like bang, gone. Following day, I was able to walk perfectly. Everything returned to normal, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've learnt the trade the hard way. Without knowing what all those tools did, I maybe wouldn't have been able to use the one tool does all quite as well. So it's hard for me to know if I'd discovered the simplicity of the 3 principles. I often think the personality type that we have, the seekers, we're looking for more. That wouldn't have quite been enough for them, perhaps. I wish it would be, because it's actually everything you kind of need to know. But I think we probably need to put ourselves through the middle of learning everything until we get to this, it was a signal. I've spent too long in my head. Get into the source place of your life. So you're in your life, and out of your head. So for me, because my mind works very analytically and I'm very visual, like I can decorate a room with my eyes open and I can just see it. Like, there's something there I can just see. So that really helps me.
Mm-hmm.
What I did see was, it's like a movie. It's like a movie where, like, that's your life movie. So you're in the movie and it's playing, and this is where real manifestation happens. When you're in your source space and you are participating in your movie and you're having your experience, this is where the manifestation zone is. Things happen, the universal flow. Everything just moves in this unison and things are easy. And then you hop out into your headspace because something's triggered you. You've thought about something, because that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
We go right back in there. And then the movie goes on pause and it goes, oh, shit. How long's she going to be gone this time? A day? A week? A month? Or a couple of years?
Yeah.
How long is her life going to go on hold for this time? Because when you're in your headspace, that universal flow, that intelligence that creates life, that keeps your heart beating when you're sleeping, that creates, a baby inside their mother growing into this child, that innate intelligence that the universe has, that continues when you're in your flow state, because you feel it. You know the difference between going in this incredible flow where things just happen, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, and now we're back to being against the grain. You've got into your head space, you've got into your head. And that's what's...
I want to ask you something about getting stuck in the head, but should we read some comments here before? Cool. So...
Oh no, please remember I'm not a specialist.
It's a hard episode because I have to get understand Scottish and understand Taylor's handwriting.
Oh, jeez.
It's a big challenge for me. So, Mr. Brown, morning to my wee sis, and you both from Scotland. It's 6 a.m. here. Cheers, Ellen.
Well done, just as well as a night owl.
He's saying, I will laser pen you all. You better bring your drumsticks next time, my man, not just your laser. He does, hey. He carries his drumsticks on his pockets. I remember that.
I won't tell you where else he keeps them. He's a bloody fool. He forgets he's a musician and he goes into magician mode. He pulls them out of his nostrils and fucking, honestly, you guys born to be on the stage, right?
Just to tell the story quickly. So we used to have a jam night at the pub here in town.
Yeah.
And I love jam nights, and Vegas Brown was running the jams. So I go there, and there are not many drummers in town. There's a lot of students, which is cool, but not many drummers. And then I go there, and this guy dress up beautifully, style. and he's watching, he's so ready, you can tell. And then he goes on stage and he just smashes the drum, man. Like, he goes off, like, he's so good. And he's got his own drumsticks, like, he was so ready. And that's Caz brother,
cool, yeah.
Ellen. And then we connected, obviously. That was cool.
Did.
So
He still talks about that. And
that was such a cool night.
It was excellent, honestly, just... You know how it feels to be on stage, and when you meet a musician of a similar caliber, and you can and Vegas was just fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
He brings that shit together, and it just flows. But literally, I think Alan stood up in the middle of his drum solo and he ripped his t-shirt in half and threw it into the crowd, and then all the young guys that were on the dance floor just going wild because there was this animal on the stage just ripped their shirts in half, like literally in half. There's a half a t-shirt there and half a t-shirt there lying on the Ferry Hotel floor, and everyone just went wild at you guys. It was just such a brilliant night.
If you're gonna do it, you do it right.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that was epic.
That's so nice. Thanks
shout
for tuning
out.
in,
Yes.
brother. Love you.
We have okay. This one is from Silver Shadow. Do you think placebo or placebo pill could help and have a big result? We kind of covered that a little bit, but
It does.
It
It does. Equally with the nocebo, if you believe something's not going to work, it won't. The placebo, when you kind of research it yourself, you realise just how many pills are placebos.
Yeah.
They have their place. Whilst we have not evolved to the point where everybody knows how not to get sick in the first place, these pills definitely have their place.
Ooh, there's a place to go soon. Learning how not to get sick. And I have a story, but well, we can go there, right? I can read this too later. When I don't like to study much, about the subjects when we're preparing for the shows, but I read a little bit and I think about my own experience so I can share something. In Brazil, it's very common to pay for private health packages, like system, whatever, like you the public system works, the public health system works, but it's a 200 million people country, so it gets overwhelmed.
Wow.
So most families, they will pay for, the private one. And I remember as a teenager going on a regular basis to check for everything. It was a code, it was something, so you always go to the doctor, and I see that still with my parents and grandparents. There's this thing of just checking, of just going to the doctor. It seems like you have to, like, oh, you had a little thing, oh, but then you had another little thing there, so you go and check, and then suddenly you have this box of pills, and then you're just timing.
It's like you want something to be wrong to get pills.
It feels like it, right? It's kind of that thing. Well, so I gotta make sure because I'm taking this one and it's gonna mess up with this part of my body, so I have to keep. It becomes part of your life. So I remember clearly going to the doctors for pretty much any little thing, right? And then I decided to come to New Zealand, and I had great experiences with the health system in New Zealand. I didn't need much, but when I did, it was pretty okay. It was pretty good. But I remember clearly when I came to Whitianga and I realized that things cost, obviously. I never forget, I told myself, I'm like, I'm not going to get sick. I'm not going to get sick. That's
Brilliant,
it.
huh?
I'm not joking. Like, I was telling myself, I was there. I was like, cool. So I'm going to just, like, maybe not exactly what you would agree with, but like in my mind was, I'm going to eat a little bit better. I'm going to do a little bit more exercises.
That works too.
I'm going to do all these things and I'm going to do my best, and I'm just not going to get sick because I cannot afford get sick. I found a reason. But when I look back and after seeing what you've been up to, I'm like, I think I kind of did that in an conscious way, of talking to myself. It's the same thing
if you're like, no, I'm way too busy this week to get sick. So you don't get sick. You get sick after your busy thing.
Yep, classic phase 4. On that, there's, I think it's Dr. Sarno that gave a very comparable story to what you've said, where whiplash is a huge claim industry in just say America, right? Can't remember the details. It's been a big night. And whiplash doesn't exist in this random Dutch country. I don't even want to name a Dutch country because I'm probably going to get that wrong because my geography is awful. So we'll just say it exists in this country and it doesn't exist in this country. This country, after car accidents, a huge percentage, if not all people, experience whiplash.
Because they are told you can.
Because it's a thing.
Yeah,
they know about it. It's on the horizon. It's on the radar for the brain. But another reason, there's an incentive. So let's talk a little bit very briefly about the incentive to these type of things. If there's an incentive there, then that's a really tricky one to say. But many people that have found themselves in the chronic pain state, it's become their life. So without that,
they have nothing.
They lose an identity of sorts.
That makes sense.
So they might lose their conversation, their talking points. They might lose they might lose the love and attention that they get from a family who might otherwise not be so supportive. They might lose their identity. So when that is a big resistant factor, because I did ask.
But then that's the people pleaser thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that what it comes back to?
It is, but I did actually ask the neuro team, because on my discharge appointment when I checked out, she said, "Can you tell me what's happened?" And I said, "Yeah." I sat and explained to her everything I'd learned from Dr. Sarno's books, and I'd only listened to them like 4 times on repeat on the audio. When I was like, "I'm out here, I'm totally done." And they says, "We need you back for your final, like we have to talk about this." So I explained, My mum was with me during that appointment, and by the end of it, the head neuropsychologist, she was in tears, and she said, "I'm so sorry you had to learn this for yourself, but I can confirm to you that practically everything you've learned and everything you've said here today is true." So my question was, why do you not give other people the opportunity to learn this? I'm assuming I'm the only person in the ward that knows about this, right? And she went, "There's many reasons. One, we're not legislated. We can't really, unless we go through a really hard out analytical, lengthy process, analytical psychology process, like we're not legislated to really roll this out en masse. It's too kind of complicated to explain. Two, you've got the pharmaceutical industry, which is a topic for another night. It wouldn't exist if people knew how to not get ill in the first place, although there is a place for medicine under some circumstances. Yes. It's a very valuable industry for many circumstances. And then there's the other part, which blew me away, but I since learned it was true. At that point in time, I argued with her and said, I don't agree with that. She said, out of, say, 100 people that are here in the ward, one of them may be willing to put down their own personal pain story and look at the truth. And I said, ego? She went, you'll have learned a bit about that. She went, yeah, in the traditional sense, perhaps. She says, but ultimately they have this whole life constructed around how they've gotten this way. Because for me, I forgot to tell you, when I was 3, a sort of huge guy fell on top of me whilst I was sitting on the floor with my legs crossed and caused the whole back situation. But it never really got bad enough until I was about 13, 14, and that's when that happened. So I had that reason. I was like, oh, that's why my scoliosis is there, because that guy fell on me. So like, there's no way, and all this shit happened in between, and it can't be. This is my story. You can't take that from me. So basically, in a parallel universe of what could be happening right now too, we just don't know. We're all trapped in this matrix, and none of us have the answers. We can only go by what feels right to us. But in a matrix of controlling information, that does far more damage than tanks and bombs. So you've got this information control where we only know what we've been told, and that's it. So when you are given the information, they could have given that to all of us, and one of us might have stepped up and said, I'm going to look at that. I'm going to put my ego down and put my own personal pain story aside and consider for one moment that this is true. Then surely it's worth it. So that was my argument to her at the time was, I disagree. I feel that everyone should be given the right to this information. And then it's of no consequence to you whether they pick it up and run with it or whether they choose to fight for their limitations.
Yeah, but it should be available.
Yes, because within options. A matrix, you know, when people are not given the right information, they will fight the person who's trying to help them. They will fight them to remain within their limitations because that's the safe box. And sometimes if your comfort zone is not a good place, but it's still your comfort zone, you'll hang on to that and you'll fight anyone who comes near it because it's just too painful, and that's okay.
Have you come across people giving you shit like, black magic, what is she talking about? The power of the mind, what is she up to? Have you got like people fighting with their own things and throwing at you? Because I don't go looking for clients and they find me, they're already
taking that first step.
It's a too hard basket.
But from the people who you've worked with, have you heard stories in that sense of people denying their own?
No, I've actually had the personal experience because I'm only talking about the clients since I've started to help people in a more professional capacity. But in the first few years, not forgetting, I was like, I've got a superpower to tell you about. So I actually shouted it from the rooftops to everyone and anyone that I felt like I could help because that's what we do. I set to work on doing things. So that's that. I encountered, but because we're the type we are too, we're very considerate and we're very kind with our delivery of things. So I never insulted anyone by saying, mate, sit down, I need to tell you how this is all in your head. That never ever came about. But even through being delicately careful, the hostility came one after another, and I felt quite depressed. I thought, This is a massive epidemic of people fighting for their limitations.
Yeah.
Why does nobody want to look at another way, a better way to be the free thinker, not to be fed by one mainstream source of information, when there are people out there who are specialists with you know, the letters after their name that have gone through the traditional system and stood up and said, I think I've found a better way.
Is there a study or anything that relates to old civilizations that those approaches were used before? Have you ever come across that? People saying that, years ago or other parts of the world, other countries would approach the mindset in that sense?
Yep, that's really important. But we're just so far removed from that right now within the current matrix, we have no identity with that. Very little. Certain parts of the world will still retain that, which is incredible, but I think we've lost our way very much.
Right. Okay, should I go for the next one?
Yeah.
Can you describe what exactly a personality type is? That's a good question.
Yes, again, it's not an in-the-box answer. Personality types are derived by, like, I don't even know what type A, B, C. You don't have to know all that stuff. I think if you're listening to the audio and you're reading the book and you see yourself
and you're resonating with it, you're like,
yes,
oh, okay,
yeah. So as far as personality types are concerned, I'm not even a remote expert on that. I don't even know enough about it to talk about it. You don't need to get into the details of that. You just need to, as far as helping people from a chronic pain perspective, is to understand the personality type, which I guess maybe the question is about the traits. So the personality type is in the traits. You tend to find that if someone is a goodist, as a good person, that's the word that Dr. Sarno used, is a goodist, they usually are good at putting other people first. They're usually the first person to put their hand up to help someone. They're usually the first person to put themselves last.
Wow.
So I guess that's the personality traits of a personality type that Dr. Sarno would refer to as type T for tension.
Right. Would you like to ask something? Otherwise, we'll just...
No, I'm going to obviously ask for your links afterwards because I really want to read the book that flicked the light bulb on for you, really.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you meet people who had experiences with medical errors, mistakes, like they went through a surgery and then the doctor didn't proceed well? Did you come across?
I mean, ultimately, there's a healing process for that too. So don't get too disheartened if you've had that sort of situation happen and you're experiencing some pain from something that has gone wrong or something else has cropped up. Because usually you find that in learning the pain distraction process, it's undone. Because if you have multiple things wrong, which our type usually do, we have this thing going on where, as Dr. Sarno recognised, it's not just the back pain, it's probably the sinus pain, it's probably the digestion pain. I guess I've come up with a few of my own analogies as well through this process. And for me, people often say to me, how long did it take for, if your back healed and you said that your immune system wasn't great and, your digestive system wasn't great and you had the sinusitis and all these things, like, did that take a while because you focused on the back pain? And now actually an analogy that just popped into my head a few months ago, it was like, no, because all boats rise with the tide, right? It's not like this boat's going to rise and these three are going to stay down there. They all rise. So when one thing fixes itself, the reason this happens is because your brain, if you look at it like a game of hide and seek, but the person that's hiding really loves you and it's trying to be loving, so let's not pitch yourself against your brain. It's not out to get you. Yeah. But there's someone you're playing hide and seek with, and you've looked and looked and looked and looked for years, and then you finally see them. Wouldn't it be foolish for that person to be like, shit, you can see me, but can we still play the game? It doesn't. Your brain goes, oh shit, she's found me. Yeah. She knows what I've been doing to try and protect her all this time. That's the game blown. and the tide rises, and that's the paradigm shift. The tide rises, it gives up. There's no longer a necessity to keep you engaged in this process that your brain now knows you've learned about, because it's your brain that's learning about it, so there's no escaping it. Your brain knows you now know this process that's been happening for a long time. And again, let's simplify it down to, I've been in my head too long, so it's caused me heaps of physical things to alarm bell, alarm bell, alarm bell.
Yeah.
She's still not hearing it. Get back to the present. So Hannah Studley would definitely subscribe to the latter rather than getting deeply involved in the details of the former. However, it's nice to kind of work them both in tandem because they both very much serve an incredible purpose.
Do you like the idea of knowing that there's so much that we don't know?
Yes. Yes, I do enjoy living in the free thinking part of the world, but without ego, none of us know. None of us actually have the answers of, I'm right and that other person's wrong. And that's why, even in the current climate, like have the courage and the confidence and the integrity to make a decision based on what intuitively feels right for you without creating division, without looking at what anyone else is doing. You know, you do you, let everybody else do them. Everyone else is having this journey. Nobody else knows what's going on in somebody else's head. No one else knows their history, their life, their personality traits, their little, you know, silly little things that we just all have to go inwards to see what feels right with us and work from that space.
Fantastic. Should we read one more
that.
question?
Yeah,
I like that
I like
too.
that,
eh?
yeah.
Is it one personality type? And how do we find our type? How many type is... Well, these questions were made a little bit earlier, so I think we covered some of them, but...
It's not just one personality type. It's just, in fact, probably to remove that label too. I know we've used this term a lot during the chat, but bearing in mind, I'm a year and a half out of talking about this, so this is a very rusty chat. Let's not use personality type, just let's talk about the traits, you know? So it's definitely not just one type of person that experiences. Everybody, because we're emotional beings, is susceptible to the mind-body disorder, just in varying degrees, just like we're in our heads to varying degrees. You might be in your head 20% less than what I'm in my head. You might be in your head 20% more than what I'm in my head. So it's just about the varying degrees of how far away you are from your source space of coming out of your thoughts and actually getting back into your life, into the life flow.
Right. Can that translate... Oh, thanks, Brett, by the way, for the questions. Can that uncertainty and that place of not knowing translate into addictions? Yes.
Anything to keep you engaged. So that's one area that we haven't really spoken about, and it's not necessary to dig too deep because there's an awful lot of addictions. If you find that this is a distraction for you, then check out Dr. Gabor Mate's work.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So Steve Ozanich has done some documentary with Gabor Mate, Gabor space Mate. He's incredible. So he definitely addresses, from a mind-body perspective, the addictions side of things. I would say that if that's something you're struggling with, then that might be the occasion where you might choose to have some speaking therapy too. If you find someone you really resonate with that you feel could assist you in that process, because it's a heavy one. Yeah. There's one thing being distracted with physical pain, but when you're distracted with mental torture, that's a hard one to take, and you might need a little bit of outside assistance, although knowing people that have those traits, they're probably not likely to want to go and speak to anyone. They'd rather do it themselves. So yes, things like that. For instance, I had a phobia of something, and it was horrendous, and it used to keep me really highly engaged and looking for this insect around the house, and it got worse and worse and worse as I got older. But again, with all boats rising with the tide, that backed off as well. I still don't like them at all, But there's a reason why I emigrated
Spiders?
to New Zealand and not Australia.
Oh.
That is the sole reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very common phobia. So yeah, that also just, it's everything steps back from the edge because we're extreme people. We take everything to the edge. We throw ourselves at things, and we're just like, no one could describe us as the shrinking violet, really, even though we don't want to be a trouble to anyone, and we don't. It's a very conflicting personality type. So it's in that conflicting depth that all this noise is born. We're a conflict.
Big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The great thing about Gabor Mate is that he talks about his own experience, right? About his own addictions and about his own problems, so you can relate to a human. You know, he's a
ADHD
specialist. He's an
things,
amazing guy, very smart, very intelligent. But he talks about what he goes through, and that's why I love about people who share their lives.
Yeah, and
you know?
that's exactly what you're doing, isn't it? Helping people with your own experiences.
Yes.
So you can connect. You can connect with them. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Did you, after going through all this journey, did you feel any interest in actually studying more, becoming a health professional?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did actually enroll for my psychology degree so I could then go into the neuro side of it. My feet are too itchy for that.
Yeah.
I got about 4 months in, I thought, do you know what? I'm not a studier. I hate this. I'm just going to go out and do things.
Wow.
Yeah.
But do things whilst being in the presence place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have loved to, but heading
not for
towards
you.
my mid-40s, and I learned this 10 years ago, and towards my mid-30s, I don't have 12 years to put aside to learn how to become a neuro psychologist, which, if I could go back, yeah, that would definitely be the zone. So yeah, just to not put people off, to be listening to what we're talking about. It's taken me years to get to the stage where I can talk about things like this. But it took me 2 weeks to get out of that crippled state and off all the medication. Don't come off your medication. Like, you have to speak to it. Don't take any of what we're saying just now and run with it. You have to, if you're in you have a specialist or you have a certain course of medical treatment that you're on and a plan, like, you have to get all that thoroughly checked out. We're talking about the chronic pain sufferers that have been through the loops. Nothing has come up. They have no diagnosis. They have been hitting their head against a brick wall, and they're suffering either physical pain or mental hell because their brain's chosen this path or that path to keep them very engaged in this thing. So yeah,
keep questioning. Yeah, it's such an important thing. Question things.
Yeah.
Right? It's like as a teacher, I love to do that. I love to tell that to my students. You know, like, I'm telling you something, you know, but I love listening to what you have to say, and you're so welcome, and you should question things, you know, like, we'll keep you sharp, and you will find answers, you know, like, some things might not suit for me, but might suit for you. So that's powerful what you say, you know, like, go there deep, you know, dig a little bit. I feel like we have a thing with the health system, especially right now, you know, like with all the COVID thing, vaccine and everything, like, it gets so, like, heated, you know, it gets
so heated, yeah.
So intense,
heated.
you know, so it's easy to become very skeptical, or it's easy to accept whatever is coming, you know, like, I would never doubt a professional who has so much more experience than any of us here, but, like, you can always listen to different points of view, right, and see what actually works for you and for the collective at the same time, right? I think that's the main thing that sometimes people miss, you know, like, oh yeah, look after yourself. Yeah, look after the community, man. Pay attention to what's happening around you.
Nice.
You know, like, for you to heal yourself, you're gonna need the people around you to be good too. Otherwise, you're gonna be in chaos. You know, like, that's not fun.
Yep.
You're all good. Hey, good morning, sunshine, and people are giving you shit all the time. So, looking after the people around you is quite a big one.
It certainly is.
How do you feel in this small community, you know, like, to have so many close contacts? I don't know how big was the city in Scotland where you were born, but, like, how do you feel being in a small community in Whitianga?
I would have struggled hugely had I not spent the 2 previous years in a compound with 6,000 people.
Fantastic.
So yes, before that experience, I was very much the city girl, and I'm a massive townie. I don't know how to do things. Don't ask me to pitch a tent. I'm not an outdoors girl. I'd love to be I'd love to say, yeah, let's go camping. No, there'll be a spider in my tent, because it always shows up in my tent.
Yeah, I don't camp either. No, thank you. That's
so
not for me.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's actually okay. You're not this,
I hope my husband's listening. It is okay. I don't go camping.
Yeah. And that's
so okay.
all right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, without having had the experience of being stuck on the compound for a few years, then I would probably still have been someone who gravitated more towards the city. So I'd probably still be in Auckland, because I've been in New Zealand for nearly 6 years now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so you didn't come straight to Whitianga, you?
I kind of did. That's where I got roped into the house hunters thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I arrived in Auckland and thought, oh, I'm going to do a bit of travelling first and see the place before I get settled down in a job. So yeah, I travelled around here and went, oh my God, this is just, like, I understand now how a lot of Kiwis will say we live in the most beautiful country in the world. It's outstanding. Mm-hmm. And then you come to the Coromandel Peninsula and it's even better. And I remember this because, like, I did a bit of travelling, road tripping when I was here 18 years ago on my year out. I bought a $200 27-year-old Toyota Corolla, but every time the deal was, the reason it was $200 is because every time you put the engine off, it needed a jump start.
Oh.
So petrol stations became my pet hate, but at least there were humans there you could ask.
Yeah.
Stop in the car to go for lunch. It's like, you're looking for a drive-through window. Everything to avoid reversing into the backpacker spaces.
Yeah.
So during that experience, I came to the Coromandel Peninsula and I just thought, this place is just incredible. So when I arrived in Auckland, I thought I'll take some time out first, do a little bit of travelling and see some places, and then I'll come back and get my head down looking for work in Auckland. So I fell in love with this place and it just knocked my socks off. So when you're in your flow, things happen.
Things do.
You become a really fast manifester when you're in that flow space. That's another thing with the tide rising. I have noticed that with Hannah reminding me, get out of the headspace and back into that flow. Your movie's waiting to resume. Get back in there. Get into the feeling space. Manifestation happens really quickly. So I literally came here for a holiday, passing through, and then got a job offer, got a house offer, got all these things that are really hard to come by in this gorgeous town that we have here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then I actually went back to Auckland. I just threw myself back at the corporate world for a few years because housing is extremely expensive here in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people really need to do the research before they come over and think they can have this amazing life. It's bloody tough.
Yeah.
I went from keeping my head down in Saudi to I left there the second my last mortgage payment was made. You know, I was desperate to get out and I thought, wow, I'm going to go as soon as I've paid my mortgage off. And then I've moved to New Zealand. I did it the wrong way around.
Yeah.
Because I've come here, sold my house, which was enough for a small deposit for a house that is like going to be 2 bedrooms, and a mortgage to choke a horse. So yeah, there are downsides.
Yeah.
Well, and those things really trigger a lot of suffering, right? And that's how I see it. You know, like a lot of people live under stress.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're not struggling to pay the rent, you're struggling to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
You know,
and there's a heap of mental health issues, especially amongst young men in New Zealand. That let's look at it from an outside the box perspective. As the spectator, if you can't afford to do the basic things that we take for granted in other countries, by buying a house, no matter how basic, a house for your family so you don't have to rent, being the provider, that traditional role, male or female, for their family, if you can't do that, then wow, that's a massive blow to, if you lose hope, that's the start of depression, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have hope, you're living in fear. Fear can only exist in the absence of hope. So with the mental health issues we have in New Zealand, it's not hard, it doesn't take a genius to look at it from an outsider's perspective, because when you're in New Zealand, again, this is another matrix. We don't have this issue at home. We don't have it in the UK. You can have two easy-ish standard jobs, like working in an office as I have, and someone doing a trade and come together as a couple or afford a house on your own, no problem. No problem. It's easy.
Yeah.
So because it's just part of this accepted thing here, I'm not surprised we have the mental health issues that we do. But just moving on briefly to what you were saying about the state of health, the epigenetic side of things. For anyone that's interested, just hop onto YouTube and check out Bruce Lipton. He's
Fantastic
amazing.
guy, amazing guy.
He will explain in very layman's terms why it's important to stay in that source space.
Yeah.
So that source space can also be referred to as homeostasis, which is what we spoke about at the very beginning, when your nervous system is out of whack because something's happened, and then it returns to the balance. So it's like, I'm in homeostasis, everything's okay in this place and I'm fine. You're going to be in a good state of health when everything's okay in that space and it's in balance. If your nervous system is overactivated and it's struggling and you're in that constant state of, which is usually a real headspace, your cells can only respond to their immediate environment. So there's the first environment, which is what we're seeing here in this room. And there's a second environment, which is through how you interpret the world, you're going to bring this in. So like at the start of this, my heart was going bang, bang, bang. I was like, oh my God, this is hellish. I've not done this for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And when I did, it wasn't being filmed. So, so yeah, if you're in that state of nervous system in an unhealthy place, which is, it's not at ease, then your cells, your DNA can only respond to its immediate environment. So when people are in this dysregulated headspace of stress, of anxiety, the chances are you're not going to be healthy. Because let's look at it, if you want to really get into things, we'll keep it as brief as we can. If someone's receiving a transplant, they put a stress hormone into their system, because a stress hormone shuts down the immune system. So if you're receiving a transplant, a kidney transplant, say, they'll put a stress hormone into you, because if it wasn't in there, your immune system would be working optimally and it would reject this new thing. This is a foreign thing. It's time to leave. So right there is a big alarm bell too, you know. The stress hormone is essential in your body accepting the new whatever it is you're receiving, because it puts the system out of whack. It doesn't, you know, it makes sense. It just makes perfect sense. So from the epigenetic side of things, epi means above the gene. So before, where we thought like our genetics determine our state of health, it's actually been proven to be the other way around. We determine the state of our health by how the environment of our cells are living and what they are living in. If they're living in a state of dis-ease, have you spotted the correlation yet? Disease.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, then that's what's going to happen. So I guess it's a massive, it would be a good shift for us to move collectively in a consciousness of returning to the oneness. But when we can't control the collective, all we can ever control, because we can never control the collective, all we can ever control is our own state of health. And what a great place to start. If we can just try and work from a place of finding that reduction in noise, finding your source space where you think, I mean, the Buddhists, they'll just focus on their breathing, and it's redirecting your focus. So you're focusing on something else until you feel something else. And it's not, you don't have to do this, but to get out of the headspace, do whatever resonates with you to take you into that feeling, being space and out of this, because we just don't realise how many years we waste up there. Meanwhile, the nervous system's out of whack, your DNA, your cells are responding accordingly, you have chronic conditions, you have very real things, autoimmune things. So, you know, let's not talk about that, because I'm not a doctor. I don't want to sound like a specialist. I'm not. I'm just someone that's been through this. And actually, the things that have taught me the most are my relapses. Because once you've healed and you've had the shift and you have a relapse, you really take it to heart, because you're just devastated that, oh my God, is this the return to something? Eventually you just relax. So this is another thing I'm able to help people with is, oh yeah, don't sweat that. Yeah, you're probably like looking like you've just been snapped in two, but in actual fact, if you just get out of your own head and know, you know where it's coming from, you know you don't have to now chase the therapists down and go on a waiting list to see someone. So just chill. It's happened. It's there now. Yeah. So just be nice to yourself. Yeah. You know, listen to some podcasts.
That's good advice. Yeah.
That's a great advice. Thank you.
Get out of your head and back into into your life.
Yeah. And thanks for getting to those aspects. I really want to bring someone knowledgeable about this DNA thing, because for me it's just fascinating, like how we are learning so much so quickly about those. I love how they say the marks, the chemical marks that the DNA carries, you know, that those things will definitely make an impact. Yeah.
And but again, I don't know a great deal about it. So you probably know more than me if you've done a lot of digging. So just again, to put people at their ease, you don't have to now be like, oh my God, now I have to learn about epigenetics.
Not at all.
Hop onto YouTube. Yeah. Type in Bruce Lipton. Check out his videos. And on that note, how are we going to get Bruce Lipton into your studio? I heard he loves New Zealand.
What? Does he? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Bruce, my man. We want you, man. Yeah. Are you serious? He lives in New Zealand?
No, he loves New Zealand.
Oh, he loves New Zealand.
Yeah.
Oops, that was the Scottish translation that I missed.
Where is he?
He loves New Zealand.
He's in the States, or in fact, this is how much I know about it. Don't know. Wow. You don't need to know that much, but let's get.
I came across
Dr. Lipton
a video
to the room.
Yeah, years ago, and I was just like, whoa, this is like, it was complex, but in a way that you could follow, you know, like the concept, it's not super easy, but the way that he expresses himself, it's nice and clear, so you can actually make sense of things. And I was like, this is fascinating. We need more people who carry all this knowledge, you know, like to share more information about these things.
Thinking outside the box very much, because you have an industry that is bound by legislation, bound by instructions, bound by press this button, get this result, almost like these are your symptoms, this is what you have, and people are almost happy to receive the slip of paper, this is my pill, this is what I take, and this goes away. But I mean, it might be a slow return to some sort of inside out revolution, but we don't need to concern ourselves with that either. We just focus on what's happening with us and with this knowledge, and if people can have a look at it, and perhaps, as Dr. Sarno said, it was the coolest thing, and I can't find the interview that I heard him say it in, but it's when he was having a lot of resistance from everybody, all the other people, the specialists at NYU, and across the board. He just, you know, he's a man of no ego, and I love that. Very consistent, very humble, very gracious man, no ego. And all he said was, even in a minority of one, the truth is still the truth.
Fantastic.
Profound, huh?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Knowledge is king,
yes. And he was so humble that he died the day before the movie that was made about him was released.
Oh, jeez.
Didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
He didn't want to look at himself, and generally he didn't take kindly to compliments. He didn't, because he was one of us too, and when we get complimented, we're not like, oh yeah, thanks. We're like, don't be silly. That's a ridiculous thing to say.
I'm out of here. Fantastic. That's so cool. So much to take in, but in a beautiful, light way. So I appreciate the way that you are bringing these things to the table. Like it made a lot of sense.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's been so nice to have a reminder of the kind of questions that a client would ask me, because I've done nothing with it for a year and a half. It's been stressful times too. I've not been able to get home. I've not been home for 3 years now, and my family are just my best friends. And I do. It's been a struggle. So there's a couple of reasons I've just hopped out. Sometimes it's great to hop out. My Facebook page, you'll find me, the Mind Body Messenger. I think you have to search for Mind hyphen
We
body
put
messenger.
the links on our
Yeah,
YouTube
so
description.
it's just Messenger just now, as in the Messenger service that
Yeah.
I will respond to. My Facebook isn't active because I've just went, this is time for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would never have learned that before. I've just kept on going and driving myself hard, and there's people out there that need me, and now you're like, chill out.
Yeah.
Have some time. Just be with you. It's
Yeah.
okay.
You do you.
You know? Yeah. So thank you. It's been absolutely incredible to have the opportunity to ease myself back in at the deep end.
Yeah.
So cool. Taylor, how are we doing, my man? Do we have any cool comments or something people are happy? We're good? Fantastic. Thanks for these questions here. Christine, would you like to add something? This has been fun.
Yeah,
this is great.
I like I said to you, I was looking forward to this because I got a little snippet of what we were going to talk about. Didn't want to look too much into it, but
Yes.
just enough to get the gist of
Oh,
it.
that's awesome to
But
hear.
I wanted to, have authentic questions. But I felt like I didn't ask enough. I was just
It is
wanted to
quite-
listen.
It's a lot
Yeah,
to take in.
yeah. No,
It is.
I kept forgetting to ask questions because I was like, oh no, I don't want to interrupt you where you are.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
lovely. Well, do you know what? We have this to reflect upon. We
Yeah.
can go through it. Anyone that's struggling might want to revisit a few parts or
Yes.
get in touch. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity to
Yeah,
be
it's
here
been
and just get back into
awesome.
the game again. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a great time for helping people. There's so many people struggling out there just now, and yeah, I can't save the world by any means, and I also have a full-time job and a busy life, so
Mhm.
I try to help people where I
Nice.
can, and fit people in, because right now more than ever, and this is why it was important for me to come along and do something out of my comfort zone today. I'm not a spotlight person. I've been roped into a couple of things on film in the last few years, the House Hunters International thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a horrific thought for me, but you never regret these things when you do it. But for this specifically, because it will have a reach where if it just even helps one person or a few people, or it at least starts a different conversation in someone's head towards
Fantastic.
taking a different approach, because it's all about helping people. We've got to be kind to people. Everyone's going through the crap. I definitely think the Great Awakening is upon us, and it was never going to be easy.
No.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's cool.
Thank you both.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So for the people watching at home, on the YouTube description, you will find all the links to get in touch with Caz, and also some cool links from Dr. John A. Sarno, and Bruce Lipton.
Steve Ozanich and
Yes.
Hannah
Yeah.
Studley.
We got them all. So just go on our YouTube description. And if you listen to this on Spotify or one of those podcast platforms, it will also be on the description. So it's so much fun. Good luck. Go hard and enjoy it. Soak it in.
Enjoy the journey, guys.
Enjoy the journey.
No.
Please
Caz.
don't forget to share as well. Share and like the video.
Yes. So we once
Yes.
again, we really appreciate all the beautiful words that are coming about our show, and so much support. So the best thing you can do, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, our Instagram page, share with your friends, leave a comment for us. And thank you so much. I will see you guys on Monday. 3 times a week we're live: Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 7 p.m.
We will be live on Sunday as
Sunday,
well.
I was going to say Sunday.
That's right. So we got a pop-up show coming on Sunday. There's a beautiful artist performing in Fitsianga tonight and tomorrow. Annie Gong, she's an accordionist.
Yes, I've
She's fantastic.
heard of her here.
Yes, and we managed to book her in on Sunday for a chat. So she's going to talk about her shows in Fitsianga.
That is
And
epic.
about his career. I think she was nominated Best Musician in 2019 by very ranked musicians in New York, which is
Oh.
cool.
Outstanding.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
so we're up for a treat on Sunday. I will let you guys know. We'll send some links. And Caz,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
thanks, Christine.
Thank you. Yeah, that
Thank
was
you.
cool.
I'll see you guys. Thank you. Thanks, Taylor.